Many years ago, in 1929, a young man of Viking heritage made a voyage from his home in Norway to the United States, seeking a way to financially sustain his mother and younger brothers who remained behind in the town of Mjøndalen. Little did he know that through a series of life experiences in America, he would gain worldwide reputation as one of the greatest all-around skiers ever to grace the sport, and honored as being named Utah's overall athlete of the 20th century. His name, Alf Engen. Hello, my name is Alf Engen, and it is a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to showcase my famous father. I would also like to especially acknowledge and recognize my wife Barbara for her valued technical assistance and support. It would be very difficult for me to fully recognize all the accomplishments in my father's life, but this presentation highlights a broad overview of his career spanning 8 decades. My father was born in May 1909 on a little farm located in Mjøndalen, Norway, about 50 miles southwest of Oslo, the country's capital. This image shows my father at a very early age with my grandparents, Trond and Martha Engen. Unfortunately, Trond passed away at the age of 31 of the Spanish flu in 1917. Dad was the oldest of 3 brothers, and in order to keep the family unit together, he dropped out of school and went to work as a laborer apprentice. His mother Martha was the main breadwinner and performed work as a maid in more affluent Norwegian homes in the small town of Mjøndalen. In those years, Norway was not a fluent country like it is today and was in a very depressed condition. However, even though Alf was of a very humble means as a young man, he developed strong athletic skills in winter sports and as a soccer player. During these years, Alf gained a strong reputation throughout Norway as a very fine ski jumper. Before coming to this country in 1929, he placed among the top ski jumpers in his age class in the Norwegian premier ski jumping event on Holmenkollen Hill in 1927, qualifying him for a potential spot on the 1928 Norwegian Olympic team. However, he was declared ineligible to compete in the 1928 Winter Olympics because under international competition rules in Norway at that time, only those with at least 21 years of age could be chosen to represent Norway, and my father was 18 at the time. When Alf was 16, he submitted a formal application to come to America as a way to hopefully obtain additional income benefiting his family unit. It took several years to finally gain approval to get the visa to come to America from his Norwegian government. This photo shows the many awards my father had won in competition before he left Norway in 1929. At age 20, Alf left Norway and traveled alone to the United States in the latter part of June 1929, not knowing a word of English. He happened to arrive at Ellis Island in New York on the evening of July 4th and remembered seeing fireworks in the air from his ship and thinking to himself what a spectacular place this was. He had been told in Norway to try and get a job in the Chicago area where he might find other Norwegians who could help him. When he finally reached Chicago, he found work as an apprentice bricklayer. Several of his fellow workers were also new immigrants but were of German descent. On weekends during the period August through the late fall of 1929, Alf played soccer on a German team with his friends. A few of his new acquaintances during this time period introduced Alf to golf and took him to see his first baseball game in Chicago. My father told me he remembered seeing a small fat man with a bat hit a ball out of the park and then run around a large circle area waving to the crowd. It was Babe Ruth. Dad's initial impression of baseball was that it was a very funny sport. Shortly after this outing, my father heard about a ski hill located outside the Chicago area near Milwaukee. He arranged for some friends to take him out to the ski location. There he saw a group of men ski jumping on a relatively small hillside with a scaffold inrun to gain speed before flying through the air. Spotting an older gentleman near the outrun of the hill, Alf approached him and asked in very broken English if he could borrow his skis. The man looked at Alf and his shoes and said, "Young man, apparently you do not know anything about ski jumping. You're not even dressed right. Besides, you couldn't use the skis because you don't have the proper ski boots to fit onto the bindings." Alf told him that he thought he could tie his shoes onto the skis with some leather straps which he happened to have been carrying. After some further discussion, the elderly man consented and Alf went up the hill with the skis slung over his shoulder. At this period of time, none of the ski jumpers in attendance had ever heard of Alf Engen, and to watch him climbing up the hill to the top of the inrun without proper ski attire was for them a very comical sight, and they all began to laugh. But that quickly changed when Alf flew to the bottom of the hill on his first jump. When Alf had completed the jump, he returned the skis to the elderly man and asked if he could take another jump. The old gentleman said, "Mister, I do not know who you are or where you come from, but as far as I am concerned, you can jump on my skis all afternoon." Alf proceeded to do just that. Later that same day, some older jumpers came over to Alf and mentioned that they knew of some very fine ski jumpers in the area who were attempting to start a professional ski jumping group. A few weeks later, Alf joined the group, and he was elated since he could again do what he loved and get paid for it as well. As a little side note, in early 1930, Alf also joined a Norwegian-American male chorus group, which won special acclaim in a nationwide singing competition. My father was given a medal for being a part of that group. In my teens, I lost a money bet with my father because I did not think he had a singing medal. But he showed me that he did, and yes, he made sure that I paid off the debt that was due to him. This medal is included in one of his medal cases currently on display in the ski museum at Utah Olympic Park. When my father joined America's first professional ski jumping group, he really had no idea skiing even existed in America. What he expected was working a few years and then returning to Norway. Having an opportunity to do what he loved and get paid for it was truly a dream situation for him. I should also mention that during the early fall of 1929, Alf's brother Sverre also came to America and joined Alf, and also he joined the professional ski jumpers group. In late 1929, Alf with 13 other members, all native and Norwegians except for 2 who were American born, started the tour in Detroit, Michigan, and then traveled to Glenwood and Westby, Wisconsin. From there, under sponsorship of the Union Pacific Railroad, the jumpers started a secondary tour which took them to Omaha, Nebraska, Minot, North Dakota, and then on to Ogden, Utah, for a grand opening of the newly built Becker Hill named after Gus Becker, Becker beer founder. The tour proceeded to the Lake Tahoe area and then finished the first jumping season back in Minneapolis. The following year, the tour again came to Utah, but the reason was to open the jumping season on a newly constructed giant ski jumping hill near Park City. This hill became known as Ecker Hill, named after Pete Ecker, a key ski jumping promoter and owner of Ecker Photo Studios in Salt Lake City. Alf and Pete developed a strong friendship, and it was Pete Ecker who introduced my father to my mother in the mid-1930s. Ecker Hill was officially dedicated on March 2, 1930, with then Utah Governor George Dern in attendance. 1931 was a big year for Alf as far as his ski jumping prowess was concerned. On New Year's Day 1931 at Ecker Hill, a crowd of 2,500 spectators watched Alf Engen break the world's professional ski jumping record. Not once, but twice. On his first official jump, he flew 231 feet, breaking the American record held by Henry Hall, and then on his second jump flew 243 feet. A month later, on February 1st, 1931, Alf broke his own record again at Big Pines in California, but this was unofficial by jumping 247 feet. The Salt Lake Tribune highlighted his accomplishment and gave him a moniker Kingpin Ski Rider in an article dated February 11, 1931. Here is a photo of the billboard sign leading to Ecker Hill in the early 1930s, and a few more photos of the Ecker Hill crowd size and my father in his prime. During the summer of 1932, Alf and his brother Sperry, along with a number of the professional ski jumpers, worked on Ecker Hill to fill up a gully between the takeoff and the knoll of the hill. It created a very real hazard to the jumpers if they did not clear the gully in the flight. So by 1933 ski jumping season, the gully had been filled as shown in this photo. I would like to interject at this point in Alf's competitive career. His second sport was soccer when he was not competing in early 1930s winter ski jumping events. He was elected captain of his Utah team, which was named the Vikings. That team won several state titles with Alf's leadership and athletic skills. His legs were very strong and he could score from 30 yards out with either foot, enough for him to make critical goals from close to the center of the soccer field. This single attribute became a great asset for his team's ability to score points against the opposition and resulted in him being a highly recognized star athlete in both soccer and skiing. This photo shows Alf's gold championship ring. In 1933, my father again broke a professional ski jumping world record with a leap of 281 feet on Ecker Hill. The following summer, the professional jumpers installed a third takeoff back of the Class A takeoff so that Alf could try to exceed the 300-foot mark. It was set back approximately 50 feet from the A takeoff, which was much higher. My father made two jumps from that takeoff. On his first jump, he flew 296 feet, and on the second jump, he went 311 feet. Both jumps did not occur in a sanctioned competition, so could not be counted as official in the record books. However, it was highlighted in posters such as this and in other ski meets throughout the country. I wrote about these feats in a published article for the Utah Historical Quarterly in 2001. I should also mention that in 1933, Alf's youngest brother Corey and his mother Martha immigrated to this country, and Corey quickly joined his older brothers Alf and Sperry as a competitive ski jumper. This photo shows the three Engen brothers with their mother in the early 1930s. In order for my father to compete competitively as an amateur, he had to drop out of the professional ski jumping activities for a year, which he elected to do in order to try out for the 1936 U.S. Winter Olympic ski team. He also had to become a U.S. citizen and obtained his citizenship in 1935. In 1935, he did try out for the 1936 Winter Olympic ski jumping team in competition on Ecker Hill and made it. However, as fate would have it, he later disqualified by the U.S. Olympic officials because his picture was used on Wheaties Breakfast of Champions cereal boxes. In those years, Olympic protocol favored a purist approach towards amateurism. Any use of endorsements or photos used for commercial purposes were not permitted. My father, when asked about the situation on NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw in the late 1980s, said, "I made a mistake. I did not know any better. However, I did not ever get any money for my pictures on the Wheaties boxes, but I sure got a lot of Wheaties. Everybody in my family had plenty of Wheaties." In the 1934-35 time frame, Alf began work for the U.S. Forest Service in the capacity of a winter sports advisor and a supervisor in the Civilian Conservation Corps. His job was to look for locations where possible ski area development could occur. He laid out many ski areas during the late 1930s and early 1940s, including Snow Basin, Bogus Basin in Idaho, and Alta at the top of Little Cottonwood Canyon. Also in the late 1930s, he stayed active during winter months by competing in major Nordic and Alpine tournaments. In early 1937, he won the National Ski Jumping Championship on Ecker Hill and also won the North American Ski Jumping Championship in Banff, Alberta, Canada. In December 1937, my parents were married in Centerville, Utah, and moved to Sun Valley. At that particular time period, Alf worked as a Special Forest Service advisor to Sun Valley Chairman Averell Harriman in heading the construction of the Rude Mountain ski jumping hill next to the Proctor ski lift. My mother also went to work for Harriman as a secretary in the Sun Valley Ski Club, eventually becoming office manager. During the latter part of the 1930s, my parents continued to live in Sun Valley, and my father was involved in many activities, including being a double in several Hollywood films. One of them was My Reputation with Barbara Stanwyck and Northern Pursuit with Errol Flynn and George Brent. In 1940, my father received the highest recognition possible in U.S. skiing by being awarded the American Ski Trophy, America's Finest Skiing Athlete. Here are photos showing Dad receiving the award and the letter he received from Averell Harriman. He represented Sun Valley in the national ski competition in the early to mid-1940s and was an exceptional athlete in many aspects of skiing besides ski jumping. This included downhill and slalom events and cross-country events in which he became a national champion in all of them. He also enjoyed other ski sports such as jumping off cornices in his shorts and ski joring, in which he was pulled by a horse over jumps and rugged flat terrain. During this period, Alf was widely recognized for having amassed one of the largest ski trophy collections in the U.S. for his athletic prowess. Also in 1940, I came into this world. So told by my mother when I was born, the doctor delivering me at the Holy Cross Hospital here in Salt Lake City put tongue depressors on the bottom of my feet and presented me to my father. Here is a photo of Dad and myself in 1942 and an article written by John Mooney in the Tribune highlighting Dad and his skiing accomplishments. My father qualified for the 1940 U.S. Winter Olympic ski team for both Nordic and Alpine events. However, the 1940 games were canceled due to the start of World War II, and no Olympics were held in 1944 as well. During the early to mid-1940s, my father served in the capacity of civilian inspector to the U.S. Army on winter warfare ski equipment and Arctic clothing for both the United States forces and armies of the Allied countries. Alf was involved in a serious automobile accident during that time period. On one of his travels to the military depot in Ogden, he was a passenger in a car that was involved in a head-on collision with another vehicle in the early morning hours. My father was sitting in the front seat of the car and was thrown face first into the dashboard. severely injuring his nose. The doctors who operated on Dad had to remove most of the nasal cartilage, resulting in a permanent change to his facial nose profile. In the fall of 1947, my father was named coach of the 1948 Winter Olympic ski team, along with Walter Prager, nationally regarded Dartmouth College coach. And in 1948, the Olympic ski team included 6 Utah skiers. Also, one of the members of the U.S. team was Gretchen Fraser, who ended up winning the first United States Olympic gold medal for skiing. This photo shows Alf with Gretchen on the board ship going over to Europe in the early 1948 time frame, along with ski team members Jack Reddish and Brunhild Grasmoen. These photos show a view of the Winter Olympic opening ceremonies on January 30th, 1948, and Alf and Walter participating in the parade ceremonies held in St. Moritz, Switzerland. As coach, my father was responsible for training the team for international competition, coaching during the games, and for all of the administrative related activities as well, which took him away from his participation in athletic competition until after the 1948 games. This image is a photo of the 1948 Winter Olympic participation medal he received. Immediately following the 1948 Winter Olympics, my father and mother were invited to travel to Norway as guests of the Norwegian government. Here Alf participated in a ski jumping event honoring him and was presented a special award and pin by the Norwegian government's top ski organization, the Norges Skiforbund. This photo on the right is a 1983 image of Alf holding these particular Norwegian awards, which were especially meaningful to him. The silver cup is inscribed to Alf Engen with thanks for outstanding achievements for Norway in the United States of America. Following the completion of the 1948 Winter Olympics in St. Moritz, Switzerland, he moved his family from Sun Valley to Salt Lake City, where he took over the Alta Ski School from his brother Sverre. In the summer of 1948, he and his brothers Sverre and Corey, plus Alta Snow Ranger Monty Atwater, made several trips to Montana, and with special government permission was given a permit to cut down a large number of lodgepole pine trees which had been damaged in a forest fire. The logs were then put on trucks driven by the Engen brothers and taken back to Utah, where they built 5 log homes on the corner of 62nd South and 23rd East. My parents were very good business and entrepreneurs. In addition to owning and operating a ski school at Alta during the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, they owned and operated the Alf Engen Company, which manufactured ski waxes, suntan lotions, and creams to a national and international winter sports market. Northland Ski Company carried my father's name on their skis, and in the early to mid-1930s, Dad even owned a service station down on 8th South and Main Street in Salt Lake City. The Alf Engen Ski School at Alta started out very modestly and with basically only my mother and father. This next photo shows the first Engen Ski School advertisement, which was hand done by my mother. In order to help promote the sport of skiing in Utah area and help his ski school business, my father established a joint partnership with the Deseret News assistant manager Wilby Durham and started the Deseret News Free Ski School. The first Deseret News Ski School session was held on the Bonneville Golf Course in December 1948. The reason that it was held there was because the road to Alta was closed because of potential snowslide conditions. It was anticipated that only a very few young potential skiers would show up. However, over 1,500 got off the buses and ended up with a very large class. While I could spend a full hour just on the subject of my father's ski school years, I will just say that the efforts and contributions my father made as a ski teacher resulted in hundreds of thousands of people of all ages to be introduced to the sport of skiing, and that includes myself. The ski school at Alta still carries my father's namesake, and the Deseret News Ski School ran every year for well over 6 decades. One thing that I should mention, however, was that during the early ski school years, Alf developed a special way to teach others how to effectively ski in deep snow conditions. Prior to the 1950s, basically only the highly proficient skiers ventured out into the deep snow. As a result of my father's teaching skills, he was given the honored title Father of the American Powder Skiing Technique. In the mid to late 1950s, Alf, along with his brother Sverre, formed an artificial snow partnership with a chemical engineer named Merrill Nielsen. The company they formed was called Summer Snow. Starting in 1953, summer ski jumping began by constructing an artificial jumping hill at the Utah Fairgrounds utilizing scaffolding. The first artificial snow was nothing more than crushed ice, but it soon developed into a plastic-like granular substance as shown with Alf and Merrill Nielsen. My father was always the feature attraction, but a number of other selected ski jumpers throughout the country, including myself, participated as well. Other jumping exhibits were put on around the state, such as at Sugar House Park and at the old Rainbow Rendezvous in Salt Lake City. In the summer of 1956, the summer ski jumping tour was taken to Mount Baldy, California. It was here that the ski jumping exhibits were performed every day from June through August. This was also done during summer months in the 1957, 1958, and 1959 years as well. During those years, my father and I performed double jumps, which occasionally included jumping through a fire hoop as a grand finale to the show. Probably the largest scaffold ski jumping hill my father and I performed on was at the Los Angeles County Fairgrounds, Pomona, California, in September 1960. The Summer Snow Organization had contracted to perform at least 2 weeks of that month, but as of the early September timeframe, the hill had not been completed because the LA County Fair personnel could not find workers willing to put the scaffold steel up that high, which was 130 feet. So my father, along with some other jumpers, including myself, did it using guy wires to help stabilize the scaffolding. The hill was completed on time, and the exhibitions were put on twice daily for 2 weeks straight, in the early afternoon and at night. From a historical point of view, this summer ski jumping extravaganza that my father put together was pioneering in nature and probably served as a model for other ski groups that started summer skiing promotions around the country in the late 1960s and 70s. Alf headed the ski school at Alta for 41 years. During that time, he pioneered many new innovative skiing techniques and was a key player in the initial development of the Professional Ski Instructors of America organization. In 1989, he retired as the ski school director and was subsequently given the honorary title of Alta Director of Skiing. He held this title until his passing in July 1997. Alta also renamed its most recognized mountainside, Alf's High Rustler, in 1978. In 1991, Alta Ski Area presented Alf with a specially commissioned large watercolor painting by well-known artist Nancy Taylor Stonington highlighting the famous run carrying his namesake. Over the years, noted Utah sports artists such as Everett Thorpe, Chasnick, and others featured illustrations of my father in both the Deseret News and the Tribune newspapers. However, the mural done by Utah artist David Koch of Alf and his two brothers is perhaps the most meaningful from a historical perspective. It is located in the House of Representatives chamber of the Utah State Capitol and was done in 2008. Part of the State Capitol information concerning the mural highlights many of the Engen brothers' accomplishments. I have often been asked when the three famous Engen brothers died. All passed away of natural causes due to age. Alf passed away in July 1997 at age 88. Sverre passed away in April 2001 at age 90, and Corey passed away in May 2006, also at age 90. In a television interview close to the time Alf retired as the ski school director at Alta in the late 1980s, he was asked about all his awards. He said, and I'm quoting, "Well, I have a room full of medals. You can't do much with them except hang them on a wall. To me, what is important is to give a good ski lesson to people of all ages and to make it possible for those with me to fully enjoy the wonderful world of skiing." Alf is the namesake of a world-class ski museum located at Utah Olympic Park in Park City, Utah. This museum annually hosts approximately 500,000 visitors from the state, nation, and world, and has received wide recognition as one of the finest ski museum facilities in North America. The mission of the Alf Engen Ski Museum is to preserve the rich history of skiing in the Intermountain region by providing a facility which highlights Alf's outstanding achievements, along with many contributions made by other honorees in ski area development. The museum hosts both the Intermountain Ski Hall of Fame and the Professional Ski Instructors Hall of Fame. While I have mentioned several significant awards and achievements my father received, I think it might be important to recognize a few others, which include, in 1954, being inducted into the Helms Hall of Fame, in 1959, induction into the U.S. National Ski Hall of Fame, 1970, inducted to the Utah Sports Hall of Fame, 1989, inducted to the Professional Ski Instructors Hall of Fame, 1994, recognized as a founder of American skiing, 1996, received Utah Centennial Distinguished Utahn Award, and in 2002, inducted into both the Scandinavian American Hall of Fame and inducted into the Intermountain Ski Hall of Fame. My father once asked on camera how he would like to be remembered. He said, and I'm quoting, "I hope they will say I have done a pretty good job and that I have loved everybody. Like Will Rogers said, I never met a man I did not like. I will be happy if they remember some of the records, but that is not the most important thing. It is the way you are inside. That is how I would like to be remembered as such a man." In my view, I think the history books on ski sport do acknowledge Alf Engen as a model of excellence, consistent with those words for a life well lived. Closing this presentation is a vignette of short film clips showcasing Alf Engen skiing in his element at Alta, Utah in the 1950s and jumping at storied Eckerd Hill in the 1930s. Most of the footage was filmed by my late uncle Sverre Engen, who himself left a memorable legacy in ski history. Accompanying the film is a special ballad, Ode to Alf Engen, composed and performed by local musician Doug Winch. Doug wrote this wonderful tribute to Alf after my father's passing in 1997. Enjoy.
He's a symphony on a pair of skis, waltzing through the pines. A million cameos in the alpenglow of Alta Standard Time. In his prime, he was a two-time four-way national champ. It's too close to call him. Through the bamboo slalom, they settled it off of the ramp. He broke his own record at a hill called Ecker, gave the crowd a thrill, running down the ramp with an airmail stand. He jumped a football field, and all heads turned to follow him down. Did you see that? It must have been Alf Engen. The old jumping still, they'll give you chills from back in 42. What did Alf ponder way up yonder, hurtling through the blue, with his heels free on a wooden ski and fate in his hands? A bare chin to split the wind, no desire to land. And all heads turned to follow him down. Did you see that? It must have been Alf Engen. Beyond golden cups, sports right up where some champions live. The stout Norwegian still out teaching with all he has to give. Winter calls, deep snow falls, don't let it be a curse. Take a lesson from Alf Engen and head for the high traverse, where all heads turn to follow him down. Did you see that? It must have been Alf Engen. He's a symphony on a pair of skis, waltzing through the pines. A million cameos in the alpenglow of Alta Standard Time. His graceful lines glide through my mind on silver wax in Super 8, forever linked to the rise and sink of my next biography. And all heads turn to follow him down. Did you see that? It must have been Alf Engen. And all heads turn to follow him down. Did you see that? It must have been Alf Engen. Hey man, did you see that? Well, it must have been Alf Engen.